Okay, guys, welcome back. Like I said, there's going to be less computer animations in these next couple of videos and more just slides and still images so that we can get through some of this information. But the point is not to be flashy, the point is the discussion. So we're just trying to get the information out so that we can open the discussion up to the table, so to speak. So, in order for this theory to be true, it needs to corroborate already established principles in astrology, right? So this video is going to see whether the theory is supported or refuted as we explore what the rest of the alignments would look like if we were to continue down this line of reasoning. Okay, here is the clockwise circle chart overlaid on the Earth with the rulers in their respective houses. Okay, so if the sun and the moon own the North Pole, this is how the rest of the rulership layout would look on the actual Earth. What is immediately obvious by looking at this is that Saturn is the South Pole. So Saturn is the South Pole, which is so Saturn. I don't know if you know anything about Antarctica, but it is so Saturn. There are so many things to say about Saturn, so we're not going to go down that road right now. But for right now, let's just take a look at the four elements of the poles and see if this aligns and makes sense. First one up, the North Pole is water, which is scientifically accurate because there is no actual landmass. The North Pole, the Arctic, is not an actual continent. It's just ice on the ocean. Whereas the South Pole is Earth, which is scientifically accurate because it is a continent. There is actual land under the ice. There's actual soil and dirt down there. The South Pole is Antarctica. The North Pole is just generally the Arctic. It's not Arctica. Okay, next two elements up. The North Pole is fire, which is scientifically accurate because it's much warmer than the South Pole. The South Pole is air, which is scientifically accurate for two reasons. It is elevated up in the air, it is the highest continent, and it is also the windiest continent. Interestingly, it seems that at least in this case, these two element pairs are intimately connected because the first pair helps to contribute to the second pair. It turns out that when you have ice on the water is able to regulate the temperature better and it stays warmer than when the ice is on land. The Arctic is an ocean surrounded by continents. The Antarctic is a continent surrounded by ocean. And it turns out, partially because of this, because it is an elevated land mass with empty ocean around it, that partially contributes to the reason it is so windy. Now, I'm not saying they have to be paired, I'm just saying it's beautiful they are. The next thing that is immediately obvious is that all of the harsh planets are in harsh climate zones. To even further the comparison, Saturn is always the South Pole and it's always malefic. Mars is always the equator and it's always malefic, whereas the moon and the sun are conditionally malefic, and they switch back and forth at their pole. How do I know that Mars is the equator and not Venus? I'm so glad you asked. I had separately been wondering about the chakra associations, and it turns out that can be used to answer the question. We're not going to get into medical astrology until the next video, but we're going to include this slide because it's a concrete segue into the chakra discussion. So looking at this diagram here where the sun, moon, and Saturn rule the pole, and thinking about medical astrology, that makes perfect sense. Because the sun is known to be the spine, the moon is known to be the cerebrospinal fluid, and Saturn is known to be the bones and overall skeletal structure. And I believe that this is all related to this association with the pole. Therefore, if you think about the pole itself as a spine and the two poles as the opposite ends of the spine, the sun and moon being the head of the spine and Saturn being the tail of the spine, and place the chakras along accordingly, it becomes immediately, glaringly obvious that this is correct. You want to know what I do? I'm a massage therapist. My specialty is the 3-hour hot stone and chakra gem massage, okay? I am thinking about the spine and the body and the chakras every day, all day. I am rehearsing and teaching people the main elements of what the chakras are about, okay? I've been doing massage for 16 years. I've only been working with the energy side and the chakras for the past few, but I do this every day, multiple times a day. I am like so immersed in this. And also, massage therapy, like your hand is a map of your body and back and organs. And your foot is also a map of your back. Your ear has another map of your body. Your tongue has an organ map. Your scalp has a map. Some say the iris has a map.
because these things are all examples of the fractal universe we live in, where the smaller portions represent the larger. There are dozens of examples of these microsystems everywhere, especially woven into ancient teachings.
So when I tell you this is a map of the body and a map of the spine and the back and the torso, you should listen to me. I'm not saying that out of nowhere.
Okay, two necessary disclaimers here. First, don't think that I'm saying a perfect anatomical map of the body because that's not generally how these reflex diagrams work. If you're not familiar with them, go look some up because homunculi look really freaky. For example, it's not like the sun is the top half of the spine and Saturn is the bottom half of the spine. It's more like the sun is the axial skeleton and Saturn is the appendicular skeleton. Second disclaimer, notice that I told you to go look them up yourself because this diagram is not reliable. This is an AI generated version just for illustrative purposes because I can't use copyrighted material. But if you need to actually reference something on these charts and actually use these charts, please go look up an actual accurate version. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at how these two systems correlate. Even if you only have a passing knowledge of anatomy and the chakras, I think you can still see the alignment. I'm not trying to convince you of anything here because I think that the correlation is self-evident. I'm just showing you how it lines up. In the next video, we're going to look at some medical astrology and more physical things, but right now we're going to look at the energy alignments and the chakras. I'm obviously by far not the first one to make these chakra associations, but again, to reiterate, that's exactly the point. We want to test the theory's validity by seeing if it can agree with established teachings. So I mapped the chart according to this theory and then looked at how it related to standing theories. This order is definitely already out there. Some people draw different associations, but I think this makes a good case for this being the correct order. So let's go ahead and go through those now. Starting at the base of the spine, Saturn would be the root chakra, which makes sense because it's all about structure and stability. The sacral chakra is all about reproductive energy and the creative force. Obviously, that's completely on point with Jupiter being about children and creation. Another interesting note here is that the Sanskrit term for the sacral chakra means one's own dwelling place, and Jupiter is the Jivakarka, which indicates us and our life force and our individuality. And the sacral chakra is very much almost the center of individuality. Moving up, that would make Mars the solar plexus, which is completely on point because the solar plexus is all about that raw vitality and power. And the solar plexus is associated with the diaphragm. And if you know anything about anatomy, the diaphragm is definitely the equator of the torso. I think this helps to distinguish why Mars owns the equator and not Venus, because Venus, therefore, becomes the heart chakra, which is self-explanatory. Then we have Mercury acting as the throat chakra, which is, of course, all about communication. The moon becomes the third eye because it's all about the mental and the psychic, and the sun becomes the crown. Okay, I'm going to keep it just that superficial for this video and wrap it up here. And in the next video, we're going to go on to looking at some of the medical astrology associations. I'm curious to know what you guys think, whether you're as convinced as I am of this, whether you feel like it matches up as much as I do, or whether I had already lost my mind on my original project and started this project crazy. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment below, and we'll see you there. Side note, it is cursed technology that you can animate photoshopped images of yourself. That is so freaky that the first image is me and then it turns into not me. It's freaky.